Hello YouTubers, Joe Kersey here on July 4th, 2014, Independence Day. 238 years in the life of our republic. This flag was handed out at my honorary nephew Ed's granddad's funeral. We always called him E1, and my nephew is E3. And obviously I've kept it. I'm going to set it down here on this clean cover here so that it's not dishonored. Oh, I talk with you. It's always interested me that Independence Day around here anyway is one of the relatively more quiet holidays. The traffic isn't quite as loud and obnoxious and busy, obviously. It's a holiday, but even along with the fact that it's a holiday, you don't get huge amounts of traffic like you do on the Memorial Day weekend or whatever, whenever they allot that to Memorial Day to be. And certainly not on like you get on the Labor Day weekend. And it's relatively quiet. Now some nights, some years we've gotten a lot of people that set off their own fireworks, whether they're allowed to or not. We have a country club up the road that some summers will set off fireworks pretty much every evening, but we've only heard them do that here just one day, and that was like on Tuesday night here this week. Today's Friday, of course. Even Columbus, which usually makes this huge deal about this red, white, and boom nonsense, and they had that last night. They had that on Thursday night. You didn't hear all that much about that. Maybe I just wasn't listening to the right, promoters. But you generally hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, you're going to go to the fireworks." Well, I'm going to tell you right now, my attitude toward fireworks is that that's another instrument of God's natural selection processes. I don't have much use for them, and I certainly can't justify the expense for them, but that's just me. As you know, I'm a very tight-fisted so-and-so. But nonetheless, here we are 238 years out and still soldiering on, so to speak. It would be nice if our elected government officials took the Constitution a little bit more seriously. Our current president seems to think that the Constitution is just sort of an advisory document, a memo, if you will, which he can ignore at his leisure and whim. He loves to abuse his executive powers, and indeed he does have some executive powers that are legitimate, but he abuses them. A lot of these guys have tended to do that. It doesn't matter which party's in power. It's particularly bad with our current individual. In Congress, it's not been able to get its act together for a number of years in terms of even doing the one constitutionally mandated duty it's supposed to do, and that's to pass a series of appropriations bills to decide how money is collected and spent. Well, they're good at collecting money, and they're very good at spending money, but apparently they aren't willing to make decisions about how to do these things in a timely manner, at any rate. So we're left with a system that gradually cuts back funding for our military, thereby undermining one of the purposes of the Constitution, which is to provide for a common defense. To provide for a common defense. And inevitably undermining the guys that have gone out there and provided for our common defense. So there's two branches under our system of government that are sort of falling short of their constitutional duties. Well, fortunately, we still have a relatively independent judiciary. Admittedly, some of the appointments can be somewhat partisan, but it's always surprising to see how when these guys get in office, and they're truly independent, they're appointed for life. And they're truly independent, how you often see what they really have actually been thinking all along. Let alone how they've always been thinking all along. So there's still hope there, even though we have such wonderful folks on the Supreme Court, like this Ginsburg individual and this Kagan individual. Then you've got the great wet Chief Justice John Roberts, who he's a bit of a wet. But fortunately, you've got guys like Scalia and Alito. I don't have much use for this Kennedy guy. Although at least it's good he does flip-flop around a bit, because otherwise it'd be god-awful. And then unfortunately, in terms of the independent judiciary, they're not all that independent anymore, because at least in the lower trial courts, the judges' hands have been tied as far as sentencing goes. I mean, they used to have a fair amount of discretion, and now they've got these mandatory sentences, these draconian sentences for these idiotic, little drug things, Well, you all might have surmised that my attitude toward drugs is that basically anything and everything should be legal. Just don't drive on them, and everything will sort itself out after a period of time. If you might, if you want to tax them, that's fine. You can set up a tax thing like you do with alcohol and cigarettes, but just somebody wants to put that stuff inside them and either enjoy it or destroy themselves with it, and let them do it. As long as they've just don't drive while you're on it and kill me. If it messes up your family, you guys will have to work that out among yourselves. I know that I'm a bit of an outlier in that area, but that's the way I think. In any case, I think putting somebody in a cage for using some of this stuff is ridiculous and expensive. So here we sit 238 years out. My great-great-grandfather fought in the Revolutionary War. He of the 28 children. My great-grandfather fought in the Civil War. He the last of the 28 children. So I guess without those two guys, I wouldn't be here. Well, not in the form you see me today. Now, that was on my mother's side. You know, my dad's side we were far more pacifist. Well, we were, and actually, I kind of still am. Although I know sometimes you got to go out and nail guys that are trying to nail you. Well, you have to, otherwise they're going to nail you, aren't they? That's just the way it works right now. Well, here we are, 238 years out. You know, a lot of historical, well, I shouldn't say historical theories, but historical accounts of countries, let's say polities that have lasted for any length of time, seem to point out that somewhere around the 250, 300 year mark, that's sort of when the decay and decadence sets in terms of losing touch with what the founding ideas and principles and ways of being were, and we might, we're clearly sort of ripe for that. Now, a lot of the anti-immigration crowd would say that that's, if you open up the borders too much, then we're going to get more decadent and more decayed. And see, I don't agree with that either. I basically believe in free movement of peoples, period. I'll say that again. Free movement of peoples, period. I think to close off opportunity for freedom and work and economic advancement to people that don't have that is just flat out wrong. We're called to take care of the widow and orphan and strangers among us. That's one of the imperatives. Take care of the widow and orphans and strangers among us. As God repeatedly pointed out to the Israelites, remember you were once a sojourner in a foreign land. And as I say repeatedly, we're all just two bad decisions away from living under a bridge. So I think people need to take a little bit more humane attitude toward immigration. Because, like it or not, within 50 years we're going to be a very different looking country. Yes, we are. But, and here's the big thing, but we can still be the same country. We can still live under our Constitution. We can still be glad that 238 years ago people did what they did. And not degenerate into some sort of degenerate satrapy that's just, lurching around in the world. No. We can still be that city on the hill. We can still be the light to the world. Well, the light to the current world, anyway. If we would but stay true to what got us all started. So that's my little Independence Day message for you guys today, YouTubers. So, happy Independence Day. Happy Independence Day.